Hey, what's up guys, Grace here, back with some more Anthem stuff, and it looks like a hot topic right now is the end game content, especially since we've got some more confirmations on how that is going to look like when the game launches. There are some very recent interviews and gameplay footage being shown, and it shows a little bit more about what we can expect to see when the game goes live in just a few more weeks. We also have more details on what BioWare is aiming to bring in the game soon after launch, including some new type of content that is more aiming towards raids, and these are called cataclysms. There's also some seasonal events being planned, designed to shape the world of Anthem, and all of this sounds very cool, which is why I'm so excited to bring you all of this information. If that is going to be enough or not for the overall game, I will let you guys decide along the way, but in the meantime, let's get started with the important bits. For the most part, expect similar type of stuff on the 22nd of this month as we saw in the demo or in the previous live streams. This includes of course the main story, which has been said to be decently lengthy, the free play with its open world events, the challenges which are on a daily, weekly and monthly schedule, the faction contracts including the legendary variants of these, and finally 3 strongholds in total. And yes, you heard that right, there's only going to be 3 strongholds in total when the game goes live on the 22nd or on the 15th, depending if you have premiere or not. In a recent Variety interview with Mark Dora from BioWare, it's been confirmed that one of the strongholds gets unlocked during the main story, and this most probably refers to the Tyrant Mine we got to play in these past demos. The other 2 strongholds will only unlock after reaching the end game and finishing the main story. We already knew about the second stronghold being called Temple of Scar, and this one was being showcased in BioWare's previous live streams as well as recently by various content creators in the EA Game Changers program. There's also a third one that we have yet to see, but only 3 strongholds at launch makes me a little bit worried, as we're not really sure yet how much of this content is even going to keep us going. In theory, Anthem has a lot of replayability to it, and the biggest drive to repeat the content is of course to get better and better loot, so you can access higher difficulties, which in turn will reward you even more loot, including of course the more desired masterwork and legendary items. That's basically how looter shooters work. That is basically the point of Anthem. You tackle difficult content, learn its secrets, get better gear, and then repeat and refine the process over and over again until you get better and better at clearing it. This should keep us going for some time, and my estimate is around, well, a couple of months at most. I think more stronghold type stuff should have been added in the game, honestly. Personally, I really enjoyed how engaging strongholds were, even in the demo, including the encounters as well as the objectives that were part of them, so I was hoping to see a little bit more of that in the full game as well, at least 5, and I think that would have been okay, at least in the beginning months. It seems that a lot of this game's success is dependent on BioWare's ability to bring in more content as soon as possible after launch, otherwise I can see a huge chunk of the player base simply putting the game on hold a couple of months in after release. A very recent example like this was Red Dead Online, which hasn't seen anything significant in terms of new content since it's been launched at the end of November last year. Yeah, and that caused a lot of players to simply abandon the game as there's nothing else to do. And I do get that they are way different games, but I just wanted to show the mistakes that the companies can make when having otherwise a good game to bring to the table. Now obviously there isn't only just bad news. Anthem does have a few tricks up its sleeves to keep players engaged for a little bit longer. We have several javelins to gear up, a high amount of playstyles for each and every single one of them, as well as dynamic content that you can tackle and several difficulties to go through for a better challenge and better rewards. There's also nothing gated, and you'll get rewarded for almost everything you'll be doing in the game, and even more so if you're doing it with your friends. And with a loot system so diverse, it will take quite some time to min-max your build, and that should give enough time for BioWare to bring something new. They even have teams working on that, and they have been doing so for several weeks already, maybe even more than that, but I'm going to mention that in the next section. Yeah, but nonetheless, since all of this content revolves around pretty much the same handful of concepts, like go here, clear this pack of enemies, go back, unlock these puzzles, maybe fight a boss enemy, I think BioWare really needs to come up with something new at most a couple of months after the game launches, otherwise it's going going to go through some really big difficult times. Even more so considering now that The Division 2, another huge looter shooter, is almost around the corner, and yeah, this one also looks really cool and I do want to play that as well, so it's going to be interesting to see which one of these messes things up first. But yeah, as I've said, there's not just bad news, we also have some good news about what BioWare is planning to bring in the game soon after release, and of course soon being a relative term here, because it's not like soon tomorrow. It might be a couple of months, it might be more than that, maybe less, we don't really know that. On the bright side of things, we did get a new type of content announced, and that comes in the form of these cataclysms. According to the same interview from Variety, cataclysms will function similarly to season content found in games like Fortnite, with a global change to the map, or what DICE is doing with Battlefield 5's Tide of War. These will all be time limited, of course, thematic content that gives BioWare the chance to change how the world looks, feels and reacts to the player, and the Cataclysm events will only last for a limited period of time, and the core experience tied to them will also fit somewhere in the spectrum between Destiny strikes and raids, and that pretty much sounds more complex and bigger than what we currently have with the strongholds. Now, I'm not sure about you, but all of this sounds really exciting, at least on paper, because we haven't truly seen any footage of that yet. But having a large-scale encounter, a high-end activity to strive towards, like these raids / cataclysmic events, even if only a small portion of the player base is ever going to get in them, is honestly some very good aspirational content that will keep players engaged for longer. From the looks of it, these cataclysmic events seem to be awfully familiar to the Shaper Storms that were talked about last year, and I believe this is a case of them just being renamed. I believe that cataclysms were former called Shaper Storms, and this is basically it. I mean, it makes sense. We saw a glimpse of this in the first gameplay trailer from 2017 that showed that area of the map going through some severe destructive storms, but obviously any other form of cataclysmic events might be brought in the game, and it all sounds very interesting. But moving on, according to some other interviews, BioWare already has many of its teams already working on bringing in a lot more features post-launch, and according to one of the producers, they are working on new cosmetics, on creatures, as well as probably even a new region that we might get to see soon after launch, and I'm really excited to see what it is because it is said to have its own weather states as well as different events. BioWare has also showed willingness in bringing features suggested by the fan base, with the recent example of course being the launch-based social hub area that we'll get to see at launch. Now, as a final point, I'm also going to be talking about how Anthem was almost considered to launch as a free-to-play model at some point. According to an interview from Gaming Bolt, this was something they considered in the early stages of development, but ultimately decided to vote against it for several reasons, including of course not being able to bring in free DLC packs and making add-ons a must-pay scenario for the game to make a profit. And I mean, that is the main reason why they even release these games. It is to make a profit, otherwise they get shut down. This would have also made the game less player generous, since they would have to pretty much turn everything about profit, and customization is one of the things that I think would have been going through the most changes. The current way we have it is probably some of the most lenient in the gaming industry, at least in terms of this genre of gaming, but I can definitely see that if Anthem goes free to play, this is probably going to be the first areas to be much restricted compared to how it is nowadays. I would also argue that having free DLCs in Anthem is a huge plus for the game, especially now since it's been confirmed that BioWare is aiming to bring seasonal and regular events in the game that will permanently change the map. So yeah, I'm really excited for the future, but I still hold my dose of skepticism. Honestly, I do want to see this game succeed because it has the type of gameplay that I really enjoy. I think there is quite a lot of potential to it, and I've also enjoyed the amount of transparency that BioWare had up until now. Tell me what you guys think about this whole ordeal. Do you think that the content confirmed so far at launch is going to be enough to keep you for a couple of months, for example, hopefully until BioWare comes up with something new, or are you planning to play something else? Cast your opinions down below. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys later, so peace out.
I'm gonna go with 8.
1 for each of the tyrant's legs.
No more scorpion talk, please.